One of the greatest questions that I get as an MBTI specialist is, what is my opposite personality type? And people are really interested in knowing this. Of course, they do have some basics already. They know that if they're extroverted, their opposite type is definitely an introverted person, right? At this though, there are many different ways that we can prove and see what opposite types are. So let's look at some ideas and some theories and how we figure it out. So one suggestion is that an opposite type is actually based upon someone's functioning pairs. Your functioning pairs are your two acronyms in the middle. So these are going to be very, very in the very center of your 4-digit type. The opposite one, or another way of figuring out opposite types, is by looking at your temperaments. And so you can look at either of those and see how that works. Another suggestion that comes up is changing the dominant function. So if your dominant function is an introverted thinker, then your exact opposite would be an introverted feeler. Another way that's suggested is by looking at the dominant function, but we're actually going to look at whether or not it's extroverted or introverted. And lastly, one that is interesting is just completely changing it and making it the opposite of everything. An introverted, intuition, thinking, judging personality would then have an opposite of an extroverted, sensing, feeling, perceiving personality. Of course, there are many people who say that that's just not true. And so what they propose is that it's actually the opposite of only 3, and it's the last 3 functions. Despite what it is, really, honestly, it's going to be very different because every single personality has part of a facets. And if you're unsure what facets are, I do have another video on facets, and there are 20 different facets that are related to personality, which is why not all INTJs or ESFPs are exactly the same. So let's look at some compatibility models. One model that is proposed is called the interaction styles model. And so as we look at this, we want to see that this is really where we're going to look at how things have been studied, and we're going to also see that there are ways in which those opposites or those incompatible personalities are going to interact. So our interaction styles model is actually based upon 4 main categories in which they're going to group the 16 personalities. And it's based on our 4 preferred ways of actually socially interacting, which is really very helpful in explaining some teamwork dynamics or group dynamics. So our first one, this interactions styles model, the very first area, mind you, I told you that there were 4 different groups. So the first 4 of the 4 main groups, the first one is going to be chart the course. So the chart the course people are types that are very talented at planning. They're going to determine their goals, and they're going to create a very step-by-step feasible course to be able to reach that goal, because that's what the purpose is. They want to attain the goal. They're very analytical and they're conceptual, and they're going to shine at being able to foresee possible obstacles as well as outgoing any good strategies in a variety of situations. Our next one is going to be the second one. It's get things going. Right? So this get things going are types that are really natural motivators. They're very excited and they can energize people and they get people involved. My father calls these the evangelists. Because they're upbeat, they're enthusiastic, and they're open to new ideas and possibilities. You've met them, right? These are charismatic, and they tend to be very expressive personalities with a desire to change and engage people in everything that they do. Our third area is the in-group or in-charge group. And these people are goal-oriented, direct, and they're very efficient. These are our natural leaders because they're energetic action people. They tend to be very fast-paced, and they're fast decision makers. They're very aware of whatever is going to need to be corrected and improved, and they can shine at just about anything, especially in emergency situations, at mobilizing resources, at mentoring, and even monitoring projects. Our last group is called the behind the scenes person. And our behind the scenes person are types that are usually talented at defining and clarifying and improving different aspects of a project. They're patient and reserved, and they prefer to work in the background. So as we look at this, we want to realize that our chart, the course people, are actually least compatible with get things going people. Okay, so when you look at this on the left-hand side, you're going to see that our chart, the course people, so if you're an INTJ, the get people going or the get things going, like an ENFP, that would be least compatible. Our next one we want to look at is how the in charge are least compatible with our behind the scenes people. And they're really going to struggle to maintain relationships and to really communicate as well as make decisions. Moving forward, our second model is called McAlpin's opposing personality, and this is based on Baby's 8 functions theory, and it states that an incompatibility happens when types with the same functions are there, but they have opposing attitudes. Now remember that opposing attitude is the last letter of your MBTI style. As we move forward, we want to see that this has actually been verified by psychologists, and it's been done through live research that has included many married couples as well as working couples. And we want to see that the types with those introverted attitudes, as they're listed right here, are having the most trouble getting along in relationships. So they're kind of like describing them as fighting every other minute. It's like walking on thin ice. You've heard that. Or broken glass. It means that you're always waiting for something else to happen because you just don't get along. These are your opposing personalities. Our next one is McAlpine's dynamic opposites, and this is really the second incompatibility theory that was proposed by him, and it's based on opposing functions. We look at our opposing functions, we want to see that those preferred cognitive processes of one type is least conscious of the process of the other type. Let me give you an example. For instance, if you were the ESTJ up here and you're least compatible with an ENFJ, it means that as they take in information and they try to make decisions, they're really going to struggle. That's because your ESTJ in particular is going to be really focusing on data, information, what's the most logical thing to do. And your ENFJ is going to be very focused on people, values, and relationships. How are decisions going to affect them? So it's really creating an opportunity for a lot of tension and misunderstanding. And this is what creates these incompatible types. So problems of both excessive similarity and excessive differences can really be solved, but it takes a lot of patience and work, and it's really going to take some information and decision-making process to decide if you're really invested in understanding someone else's point of view or their tendencies. The biggest thing is to make sure that you don't get locked into thinking that there's one personality that is better than another. They're not better than one another. They're just all different. We all have weaknesses and we all have strengths. And in any relationship, whether it be professional or personal, we are really going to have to take time in order to make sure that it lasts. We're going to have to make an effort to empathize with and understand each other's temperament and our personality tendencies.